Okay, we'll try that again. All right, 2.8, proving angle relationships. Like I just told you, we're not really doing proofs over this section right now, but we might come back to it later. I still have to cover this stuff, though, because it'll help you with the normal math questions, too, okay? So an angle addition postulate, before I even go there, you guys don't have to draw this, just watch it, okay? Back when we had segments, right, if this was like 2 and this was 2.5, and they said find AB or whatever, the whole thing, what did you get for the whole thing? 4.5. How did you get that? You added, right? Duh, okay? You guys already know this. So what they're saying is this piece plus this piece equals the whole thing. We have that with angles as well. I'm going to say this piece here plus this piece here equals the whole thing. Do you guys see that? So like if I said the whole thing, angle ABC is 100, and I said angle ABD is 60, then what would you tell me angle CBD was? 40. Do you see what I'm saying? Because this piece plus this piece equals the whole thing. So now I'm going to show you with the actual letters they used. D is the interior of angle ABC if and only if measure of angle ABD plus measure of angle DBC equals measure of angle ABC. They're saying this one plus this one equals the whole thing, which you guys just did with me. Okay? They're just making it very fancy, right? Theorem 2.3, supplement theorem. Anytime you hear the word supplement or supplementary, what are you going to think every time? Something about 180, right? So this one says, if two angles form a linear pair, what's a linear pair? A line, right? If two angles form a linear pair, then they are supplementary angles. You've known this for forever. But the reason we're talking about it is if we had to justify a step, this would be the justification, okay? So they're telling us that angle 1 and angle 2 are obviously a linear pair. They look like a line, right? So that means measure of angle 1 plus measure of angle 2 is 180 degrees. But you guys already knew that, right? Complement theorem, something about what? 90, right? Complementary is 90. If the non-common sides of two adjacent angles form a right angle, then the angles are complementary angles. They're saying angle 1 and angle 2 make a right angle together, so they're complementary. Measure of angle 1 plus measure of angle 2 is 90. Not new. Everybody okay? Okay. These are the properties that we had the other day, I think on 2.6 probably, when I first introduced these to you, where we had reflexive, symmetric, transitive, property of equality. Today we have property of congruence. Isn't that going to be the same thing, though? Instead of an equal sign, it's going to be a congruent sign. It's the exact same thing. So here, reflexive property of congruence, angle 1 congruent to angle 1 instead of equals. It's the same thing, though, right? Symmetric, in the other section, we would say, like, if x equals 2, then 2 equals x with an equal sign, right? This time I'm saying 1 congruent to 2, then 2 congruent to 1. Symmetric, switch sides, okay? Transitive, if angle 1 congruent to angle 2 and angle 2 congruent to angle 3, then the first thing congruent to the third thing, the last thing, angle 1 congruent to angle 3. That's not new either. It's just a congruent sign instead of an equal sign. Are we okay? Okay. This is kind of new to you, but it's not hard to understand. Congruent supplements theorem. Again, what are we probably talking about? If they say supplement, 180, something about 180, okay? This one says, angles supplementary to the same angle or congruent angles are congruent. For example, if I tell you that angle 1 and angle 2 are supplementary, and I tell you angle 3 and angle 2 are supplementary, okay? If I say angle 1 is 100, what's angle 2 have to be? 80. If angle 2 is 80, what's angle 3 have to be? 100. But doesn't that make angle 1 and angle 3 the same? Right? So because they're supplementary to the same angle, they had to be equal to each other because that's the only way it makes sense. Is that okay? Okay. Same thing with complement. So this time they're going to add up to 90, right? Angles complementary to the same angle or congruent angles are congruent. So if I tell you 4 and 5 are complementary, and if I say 5 and 6 are complementary, because remember they can be complementary even if they're non-adjacent. Right? They don't have to be right next to each other and make that box, okay? So if I say that these two are complementary and these two are complementary, if I say angle 4 is 20, what's angle 5 have to be? 70. And if angle 5 is 70, what's angle 6 have to be? 20, making 4 and 6 the same. Does everybody understand that's what they're trying to say? Okay? If two angles are vertical angles, then they are congruent. You've known that for a while now as well, right? What angle is congruent to angle 2 in my picture? Say again? 4. Very good. What about angle 1? Angle 3. What do I know about 2 and 3, though, while it's up here and I'm just asking you random questions? What are 2 and 3? I heard supplementary, add up to 180. They're a linear pair. All those things are true, right? All right, these are new for you, but they're also not hard. You're just going to kind of be like, why are we talking about this? Again, if we were doing proofs, these would be super useful. It's still nice to know these things, but don't freak out if you kind of don't understand this page entirely. That's okay. All right, so just bear with me. Perpendicular lines intersect to form 4 right angles. We've already kind of talked about that, right? Remember, this means perpendicular. Okay, so in our picture, if AC is perpendicular to BD, then that means like angle 2 is a right angle for sure, right? That's what I usually draw if they tell me 2 lines are perpendicular. But what that means is if I look at angle 1 and angle 2, what are they called again? Supplementary, linear pair, those are all true, right? So if this one's 90, angle 2, what does angle 1 have to be? 90, right? If I look at vertical angles with 2 and 3, if angle 2 is 90, what's 3 have to be? 90. So do you guys see that all 4 end up being 90 if one of them is 90, right? This says all right angles are congruent. Again, kind of a duh statement. How much is a right angle? 90 degrees. So if I have a right angle and you have a right angle, we both have 90-degree angles, which means they're the same. So this is usually used in proofs, okay? Perpendicular lines form congruent adjacent angles. That's kind of like the first thing I just said, but it's saying congruent adjacent angles. It's literally saying that they're all the same and they're all next to each other, but what are all of them? If they're perpendicular lines, congruent adjacent angles, thank you so much. What are all of them if one of them is 90? 90. Do you see what I'm saying? It's saying the same thing the first one said in a different way, okay? Am I on 212? If 2 angles are congruent and supplementary, then each angle is a right angle. So what they're saying is, if I have angle 5 and 6, okay, they can be supplementary even though they aren't adjacent. You guys get that, right? So a supplementary just means adds up to 180, not necessarily a linear pair, okay? So if I tell you that angle 5 is, no, I'm just going to tell you angle 5 and angle 6 are supplementary and congruent. What's supplementary mean again? Add up to 180. If they're the same, then what do each of them have to be? 90. Good. If I tell you 2 congruent angles form a linear pair, then they're right angles. That's what you guys just said in a different way, right? So this time they were a linear pair, and they added up to 180. We could tell that because they make a line. And if they told us they're congruent, I know they both have to be 90. So these were all kind of duh statements. Do you guys get that? You could have understood this without me even talking about it, right? Okay. Let's do a couple. Your instructions say something about like find the measure of each numbered angle or something like that. Or it should say that. That's what the directions in the book would say. They would say find the measure of each numbered angle. So we're going to find all the angles. In the end, I'm going to have angle 1, measure angle 2, measure angle 3, measure angle 4. When I'm done, I'm going to find all 4 of them. Is that okay? All right. They first told me angle 2 and angle 3 are complementary. What's that even mean? What's complementary? Add up to 90, right? And 2 and 3 are right next to each other. They're adjacent. So I'm going to go ahead and draw my right angle box on 2 and 3. Does everybody see that? We couldn't assume it. They had to tell us that, okay? They told us angle 1 is congruent to angle 4. How do I draw that in my picture? Yeah, the arcs, right? Angle 1 is congruent to angle 4, so I'm going to give them both one arc to let me know that, okay? And then angle 2 is 28 degrees, so I'm going to fill that in. Everybody okay? We've done everything they've said, right? If angle 2 is 28, I can go ahead and fill that in over here, right? That's done, 28 degrees, okay? Where do we go from here? They didn't tell us 2 and 3 were congruent. What did they say about 2 and 3? Very good, complementary. So what's that mean, everybody? They add up to 90. So you're right that we're going to start with 2 and 3. So if 2 and 3 add up to 90 together, how am I going to find 3? 90 minus 28, right? Because this piece plus this piece is the whole thing. So the other way to do it is 90 minus 28. So what do you guys get when you take 90 minus 28 for angle 3? Say it again.
60.
Good. We're at 62. There we go. Good. I'm going to go ahead and draw it in my picture too. You obviously don't have to, but it helps me. Okay. So angle 1 and angle 4 are left over. I know they're the same. That's going to help in a minute. I don't know what to do from here though. Okay. So 1, 2, 3, and 4 make a line, which means they add up to 180, right? So we have a couple of choices. If you're more geometrically minded, you're probably already like, okay, well 180 minus 90 is 90, and they're the same, so they each have to be 45, right? If that makes sense to you, great, go ahead and write it down. If you're more algebraic, you might want to do this. I don't know what angle 1 is, and I don't know what angle 4 is, but I know they're the same, so I'm going to call them both an x, right? So I'm going to say x plus 28 plus 62 plus the other x make a line, right? And we already knew that those were really 90. I mean, I could add them too, but 2x plus 90 is 180, so 2x is 90, so x is 45. I don't care how you solve it. You need to do what makes more sense to you. If you guys just subtracting on your calculator, you got the 45s, you're good. This was an easy question, that's fine. But if you're like, I didn't really see that, then you might want to do the algebra instead. Does everybody have a way that they prefer one or the other? Okay. So again, if you only showed me this, I don't think you're cheating. I understand that you know how to use a calculator. That's fine. You don't have to do that unless it helps you understand it. Is that okay? All right. Anybody still need that question? Okay. Again, they want angle 9 and angle 10. So I'm going to go ahead and do this now because I'm afraid that I might just find like the x or whatever and think I'm done like we were in Algebra 1, right? This whole chapter, what we want to do is think about the relationships. We have some options. We have vertical angles sometimes, which means that they're congruent. We have linear pairs, which means that they add up to 180. We have complementary. Do you see what I'm saying? They all have a relationship or else we probably couldn't do the problem, okay? So if we look at angle 9 and angle 10, what's their relationship? What do they make? A line, which means they add up to 180. So I could label these 3x plus 12 and x minus 24, right? But I'm going to say angle 9, 3x plus 12, plus angle 10, x minus 24, make a line. They add up to 180. Do you guys understand that? Okay. By here, you guys should be able to do the algebra. I'm going to do it too, but you could totally beat me, okay? We're going to combine like terms before we move anything, all right? So 3x plus 1x is how many x's? 4x, and then I have the 12 minus the 24, which gives me negative 12. Good. Still equal to 180. What do I have to do next? Not an option. Add that 12. So what is 180 plus 12? 192. And then do what? Divide by 4. Anybody have that? Say it again. Good. So I got x is 48. Don't circle it like we did in algebra. We're not done, right? Did they want x? No. What did they want? Angle 9 and angle 10. So what do we have to do with x? Plug it in. What's a fancy word for plug it in? Substitute. I'm just making you guys think all over the place, aren't I? We're going to substitute, okay? So when you substitute, you're obviously going to say 3 times 48 plus 12. We'll do that in a second. And then the x is 48 minus 24. I'm just substituting x into angle 9 and angle 10, right? I'm going to do angle 10 first because I can do that without a calculator. What is 48 minus 24? 24, right? And then with this one, you might need a calculator. Take 3 times 48, add the 12, and what do you end up with? So I'm going to make it look a little bit easier. Angle 9, measure angle 9 is 156 degrees, and measure of angle 10 is 24 degrees. Couldn't I, though, if I wanted to, especially if I didn't have a calculator, which I would never do because we bring calculators every day, couldn't I find this one without a calculator and get the 24? And instead of substituting, which is probably the safest thing, but if I didn't want to, couldn't I just subtract from 180? Do you guys see what I'm saying? You don't have to substitute into both pieces. If it was a test or a quiz, though, I probably would, just to kind of double check my work. Because let's say I got the 24 here, and I got like 100 here. I'd be like, wait a minute, something didn't make sense. Those don't add up to 180. Do you see what I'm saying? So I'd go back and maybe I got the X wrong or something like that. Do you guys have any questions at all? The last two are proofs, and we're not doing those. You guys are good? So on the assignment, there's already a couple that are crossed off. You guys are going to add one more that we're not doing. We're not doing number 14. Okay? So for the video, I'm going to say out loud what we're doing, but you guys all have the sheet. So we're on 2-8. There's already a couple already crossed off. We're going to add one more X to it, number 14. So the ones you're actually doing are 9, 10, 12, 34, 38, 42, 52. I'll say that again for you guys, but for the video, they should be okay. Okay?